The arena of trials was older than some human civilizations. Stone walls rose high, carved with thousands of names, warriors who had fought here over centuries. The morning sun cast long shadows across the arena floor. Taemin sat in the front section with Yuna, Yunsu, and Nari. Behind them, thousands of Mothkai filled the stands. Some cheered for Velis. Others clearly supported Kreth's faction. The noise was deafening. On one side of the arena, Velis stood alone. She wore light armor, traditional Mothkai training gear. The visor gleamed on her head. She held a training staff, the weapon Vel had said suited her best. On the other side, Kreth's champion waited. His name was Tor, a mid-rank warrior. Not the best, but experienced. He was huge, easily 8 feet tall, carrying a heavy blade and shield. Warmaster Kreth sat in a position of honor, looking confident. Commander Velth sat stone-faced, every muscle tight with tension. The High Council's eldest rose to speak. His voice carried across the arena without amplification. We gather for a trial of worth. The question before us: does the visor technology grant true equality to the shadow-touched? Velis, daughter of Commander Velth, fights to prove it does. Warrior Tor fights to prove it does not. The combat will continue until one yields, is incapacitated, or... He paused. Death. Taemin felt his stomach drop. Death. They had not mentioned death before. This is barbaric, Yunsu whispered. It's their way, Yuna said quietly. We can only watch now. The eldest raised his hand. Begin! Tor moved first. He charged forward with shocking speed for someone his size. His blade swept toward Velis in a powerful arc. She dodged. Barely. The blade whistled past her head. Tor did not slow. He pressed forward, attacking again and again. His strikes were strong, precise, relentless. Velis dodged and blocked with her staff, but she was being driven backward. The crowd roared. Kreth's faction cheered. Taemin's hands gripped the stone seat so hard his knuckles turned white. Tor's blade caught Velis's staff and knocked it aside. His follow-up strike came fast. Velis rolled, the blade missing by inches. She came up on her feet, breathing hard. She's too small, someone behind Taemin said. Too inexperienced. Come on, Taemin whispered. Come on, Velis. Tor attacked again. But this time something changed. Velis stopped retreating. She moved forward inside his guard. Her staff struck his knee. Not hard enough to injure, but enough to make him stumble. She was learning. Adapting. Tor recovered and pressed harder. But Velis was no longer just defending. She used her smaller size, her speed. She struck and moved, never staying in one place. Her visor tracked his movements, helping her anticipate. She's fighting like a human, Hyunsu said suddenly. Look at her footwork. That's not traditional Mothkai combat, he was right. Mothkai warriors fought using electromagnetic sense to predict their opponent's muscle movements. Velis did not have that ability, even with the visor. So she fought differently. She used visual cues. She watched Tor's eyes, his posture, the angle of his weapon. Tor was getting frustrated. His attacks became wilder. Stronger, but less controlled, Velis waited. She dodged a massive overhead strike. As Tor's blade hit the stone floor, she moved. Her staff struck his wrist. His grip loosened. She kicked his knee again, harder this time. Tor stumbled backward. The crowd's noise changed, uncertainty mixed with excitement. But Tor was far from beaten. He roared and charged, abandoning technique for pure aggression. His shield bashed toward Velis's head. She dropped low, rolled under it. Came up behind him. For a moment she had an opening. A perfect strike to the back of his head. She could end it. She hesitated. Tor spun faster than seemed possible. His elbow caught her chest. She flew backward, hitting the ground hard. The staff rolled away. No! Taemin was on his feet without realizing it. Tor advanced on Velis. She scrambled backward, unarmed. He raised his blade for a finishing strike. Then Velis did something unexpected. She grabbed a handful of sand from the arena floor and threw it directly at Tor's eyes. He flinched. For a warrior who relied on electromagnetic sense, visual obstruction should not matter. But it was instinct. Everyone flinched when something flew at their eyes. In that half-second of hesitation, Velis moved. She grabbed her fallen staff, rolled to her feet, and struck. Not at Tor's body, at his weapon. Her staff hit the blade's flat side at precisely the right angle and moment. The blade flew from his grip, clattering across the arena floor. Tor reached for his backup weapon. But Velis was already there, staff pressed against his throat. Yield, she said. Her voice was steady despite her heavy breathing. Tor stared at her. He could probably overpower her even unarmed. But the rules were clear. She had disarmed him. She had won the tactical advantage. The arena had gone completely silent. Tor slowly raised his hands. I yield. The silence broke. Half the crowd erupted in cheers. The other half sat in stunned disbelief. Kreth was on his feet, his expression furious. Velis lowered her staff and stepped back. She looked exhausted. Blood dripped from a cut on her arm. But she was standing. She had won. Commander Velth leaped from his seat and ran into the arena. He grabbed his daughter, holding her tight. Velis hugged him back with all four arms. The High Council's eldest rose again. The trial of worth has concluded. Velis has proven that with the Visor technology, the Shadow-Touched can compete as warriors. The challenge is answered. He turned to Kreth. War Master, you agreed to abide by the trial's outcome. Kreth's face was a mask of barely controlled rage. But he was a warrior. Honor bound him. I acknowledge the result. The words seemed to physically hurt him. The project may continue. But his eyes, when they fixed on Taemin, promised this was not over. Later in the medical facility, Velis's wounds were treated. Taemin sat beside her while medics worked. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen, he said. Velis laughed, then winced. I learned from watching human entertainment videos. They throw sand in fights all the time. You watched movies to learn combat tactics? Vel said I needed to think differently than traditional warriors. So I did, she smiled tiredly. Did it work? You won, didn't you? Over the next week, everything changed rapidly. The High Council formally approved the Visor program for empire-wide distribution. Funding was allocated. Manufacturing facilities were designated. Training programs were established for Shadow-Touched who wanted to learn new skills. Taemin's month was almost up. At a formal ceremony, the High Council honored him. They presented him with an ancient blade, ceremonially marking him as Friend of the Hive. It was unprecedented. No human had ever received this honor. Kravar and his 3 warriors performed a ritual, marking Taemin as part of their war clan. It was deeply personal, and Taemin felt honored in a way he could not quite explain. Commander Velth offered him a permanent position. Laboratory resources, anything he wanted. I'm grateful, Taemin said honestly, but my home is back at New Terra Station, my shop. My life, Velth nodded, understanding. The offer remains open always. On the day of departure, hundreds came to see them off. Shadow-Touched families, scientists, even some of Kreth's former faction who had changed their minds. Velis hugged Taemin one last time. I will never forget what you did for me. For all of us. I'll never forget you either, he smiled. Keep training. Maybe one day you'll be a commander like your father. Maybe. Or maybe I'll be something new, something no Shadow-Touched has been before. She grinned. We have choices now. Thank you for that. The journey back to New Terra Station was quiet. Taemin, Yuna, and Hyunsu were all exhausted, but satisfied. You changed their entire civilization, Yuna said. You know that, right? I just made a device. Taemin looked out at the stars passing by. Velis did the hard part. You both did, Hyunsu said. That's what makes it special. When they finally arrived back at the station, Taemin's shop looked exactly as he had left it. Dusty, cluttered. Home. He reopened the next day. Customers came with their broken devices. Life returned to normal. Almost. The ceremonial blade hung on his wall. Periodically, messages arrived from the Mothkai homeworld. Updates on the Visor program. News about Shadow-Touched entering fields they never could before. 3 months later, he received a video message from Velis. She was in uniform. Scout Academy training gear, Taemin. I was accepted. First Shadow-Touched ever in the Scout Academy. Her joy was infectious. Vel is one of my instructors. He says I'm a terrible student, but I think he's proud. I wanted you to know. None of this would be possible without you. Taemin saved the message. Watched it sometimes when he was working late. One evening, a new customer entered his shop. A young alien from a species he did not recognize. She moved awkwardly, struggling with something. Can I help you? Taemin asked. She explained her problem through a translator. A genetic condition affecting her mobility. Doctor said nothing could be done. Taemin looked at her. Thought about a scared Mothkai child who could not see. Thought about how one small act of kindness had rippled across an entire empire. He smiled. "Let's see what we can do," he said. Outside, the stars continued their endless dance, and in a small repair shop on a distant station, a human engineer began to work on another impossible problem. Because that was what humans did. They helped. The day after the ceremony, Taman arrived at the laboratory to find it surrounded by guards. More than usual. They looked tense, weapons ready. "What's wrong?" he asked Kravar. Kreth made a public statement last night. He called the Visor project an abomination, said it insults our ancestors and weakens our species. Kravar's expression was dark. His followers are growing. Inside, the atmosphere was different. The Mothkai scientists worked quietly, glancing nervously at the doors. Even Nari seemed worried. Some of the researchers left, she told Taimin. They said they didn't want to be associated with the project anymore. They're afraid of Kreth. Can he really stop this? Hyunsu asked. The High Council approved it. The High Council can be influenced, Yuna explained. Kreth is a war hero. He commands 3 fleet divisions. People listen to him. Taman felt frustration building. So what, we just give up? Tell those 50 children and the thousands waiting that we're stopping because one person disagrees? No one said anything about giving up, Kravar said firmly. We keep working, but the tension grew. Over the next 2 days, protests appeared outside the facility. Mothkai carrying signs with symbols Taman could not read. Yuna translated some of them. Respect our nature. Tradition over technology. The shadow-touched are perfect as they are. That last one is the worst, Hyunsu muttered. It sounds nice, but it's basically saying they should stay disabled. On the 3rd day, everything came to a head. Tae-min was reviewing manufacturing specifications when alarms blared. Guards rushed through the corridors. Kravar appeared, moving fast. We need to go, now. What's happening? Kreth is here. He's demanded a formal audience with the project leadership. They were taken to a large chamber deep in the facility. The High Council was there, all 7 members sitting in elevated positions. Commander Velth stood to one side, his expression unreadable. And in the center of the room, War Master Kreth waited. He was old, even by Mothkai standards. His armor was ancient but well-maintained. Scars covered every visible part of his body. He looked like someone who had spent a lifetime in combat. When Taman entered, Kreth's 3 eyes fixed on him with pure contempt. So this is the human. His voice was rough, dripping with disdain, the one who thinks he knows better than our entire civilization. I'm just trying to help, Taman said, keeping his voice calm. Help? Kreth laughed, but there was no humor in it. You interfere. You disrupt natural order. The shadow-touched exist as they are for a reason. And what reason is that? The words came out before Taman could stop them. Kreth's expression hardened. The Mothkai have survived for thousands of years by being strong, by adapting naturally. Those who cannot perceive the electromagnetic spectrum learn other skills. They contribute in other ways. Your device makes them dependent on technology. Weak. Giving someone the ability to see doesn't make them weak, Hyunsu said angrily. It gives them choices. Choices that go against our nature. Kreth turned to the High Council. I invoke my right as War Master to challenge this project. I demand a trial of worth. The chamber went silent. Even the council members looked shocked. You cannot be serious, Commander Velth said, his voice dangerously quiet. I am completely serious. Kreth's expression was set. The trial will prove whether this technology truly makes the shadow-touched equal. If it does, I will support the project. If it does not, the project ends. One of the council members, an elderly Mothkai, spoke. War Master Kreth, a trial of worth has not been called in 20 years. The terms are severe. I know the terms. The shadow-touched claim they can be equal to full-sighted Mothkai. Let them prove it. Kreth's smile was cruel. Let a visor-wearing shadow-touched face a warrior in traditional combat. If they can hold their own, I will admit I was wrong. Taman felt cold. That's not fair. They've only had the visors for weeks. No one could learn to fight that quickly. Then they are not truly equal, are they? Kreth said smugly. This is insane, Nari protested. You're setting up an impossible challenge. The trial of worth is ancient law, another council member said reluctantly. If War Master Kreth invokes it formally, we must allow it. Velth stepped forward. I object. This is political maneuvering, not legitimate concern. Do you question my honor? Kreth's voice turned dangerous. The two stared at each other. Taemin could feel the tension. These were two powerful men, and this was about to become a much bigger problem. Stop. Everyone turned. Velis stood at the entrance to the chamber. She wore simple training clothes and her visor. She walked forward with confidence. I will accept the challenge. No. Velth's voice was sharp. Velis, you cannot. I can and I will. She turned to face her father. Father, I am shadow-touched. I wear the visor. I have trained every day since receiving it. If anyone should represent us, it should be me. You are a child, Kreth said dismissively. I am 14 solar cycles, old enough to begin warrior training by our laws. Velis looked at the council. I formally volunteer for the trial of worth. The chamber erupted in argument. Velth looked furious. Kreth looked pleased. The council members debated loudly. Taemin pushed through to Velis. You can't do this. I never meant for anyone to get hurt because of my invention. Velis turned her visor-enhanced gaze to him. You gave me sight. Now let me show them what that means. Let me prove the shadow-touched can be warriors too. You've been training? Hyunsu asked. With Vel. She nodded toward the young warrior. He has been teaching me. Every evening after the laboratory closes. Vel stepped forward, looking guilty. She asked me to. I could not refuse. She has potential. Potential is not enough against a trained warrior, Kryvar said seriously. It will have to be. Velis straightened. I will not let Kreth destroy this project. Too many shadow-touched are waiting. They deserve the chance I received. The High Council conferred quietly. Finally, the eldest spoke. Velis, daughter of Commander Velth, has volunteered for the trial of worth. Does War Master Kreth accept her as a challenger? Kreth studied Velis. Taemin could see him calculating. A child, even one trained, would be easy to defeat. It would humiliate the project, I accept, but I choose my champion. The trial will be in 3 days. That should give the challenger time to prepare. The way he said it made it clear he thought 3 years would not be enough. Velth tried one more time. Velis, please. I cannot lose you. You won't, father. I promise. She hugged him. I can do this. After the assembly ended, Taemin found himself in a small room with Velis, Vel, Kryvar, and the other warriors. Teach me everything, Velis said. I have 3 days. Make them count. Kryvar shook his head. 3 days is not enough to become a warrior. Then teach me to survive. Teach me to not lose. Teach me something Kreth's champion won't expect. Velis's determination was absolute. Taemin watched them begin planning. His invention, meant to help a blind child see, was about to put that same child in mortal danger. He felt sick. Yuna put a hand on his shoulder. This isn't your fault, isn't it? If I had never made the visor, then Velis would still be blind. Thousands of shadow-touched would still be waiting in darkness, and Kreth would still be spreading his poison. Yuna squeezed his shoulder. Velis chose this. Honor her choice. The next 3 days were intense. Velis trained from before dawn until after dark. All 4 warriors worked with her, teaching different techniques. Vel taught her speed and evasion. Thes taught her precision and timing. Orn taught her to use strength efficiently. Kryvar taught her strategy. Taemin and Hyunsu worked on the visor, optimizing it for combat. Faster refresh rate, better peripheral awareness, enhanced motion tracking. Nari researched the trial of worth, trying to find any advantage they could use within the rules. On the evening before the trial, Velis sat with Taemin outside the training facility. The sky was darkening, stars beginning to appear. Are you scared? Taemin asked. Terrified, she admitted, but also excited. Is that wrong? No, it means you're brave. He paused. You don't have to do this. It's not too late to withdraw. Yes, it is. Too late, I mean. She looked up at the stars. Before you gave me sight, I lived in darkness. I was grateful for my family, for the life I had, but I knew I was missing something. Everyone around me could perceive things I could not. I was always different, always less. You were never less. Maybe, but I felt it. She turned to him. Now I can see. I can train. I can fight. I can prove that shadow-touched are not weak. That we just needed a chance. She smiled. You gave us that chance. Tomorrow I show the world what we can do with it. Taemin wanted to argue more, But looking at her determined face, he knew it would not matter. "Then win," he said simply. "I will." The next morning they traveled to the arena of trials. It was an ancient structure, built for exactly this kind of challenge. Thousands of Mothkai filled the stands. In the center, two figures waited, Velis small but determined, and Kreth's champion, a warrior twice her size. The trial was about to begin. The Mothkai ship was unlike anything Taemin had ever seen. From the outside, it looked organic, like a massive insect carved from dark metal. Inside, the corridors curved and branched in patterns that made human architectural sense seem rigid and boring. The journey took 8 days through multiple jump gates. Taemin spent most of that time in his assigned quarters, going over Mothkai neural data that Yuna provided. Hyunsu was in constant fascination, exploring every part of the ship the warriors would let him see. The 4 warriors kept their distance, but were always nearby. Taemin realized they were not just escorts. They were bodyguards, protecting him. "Why do I need protection?" he asked Kravar on the 3rd day. The scarred warrior considered the question. "Not everyone in our empire is happy about this. Some believe accepting human help is shameful. Others think the shadow touch should remain as they are." "You mean they think I'm interfering?" "Something like that." Kravar's expression was hard to read. "Do not worry. No one will harm you while we live." It was meant to be reassuring. Somehow it made Taemin more nervous. On the 8th day they arrived at Kaithmore, the Mothkai homeworld. Taemin pressed his face against the viewport and stared. The planet was beautiful in an alien way. Instead of blue and green like Earth, it was purple and silver. Massive cities covered the surface, but they did not look like human cities. They looked like hives, enormous structures that spiraled upward, glowing with electromagnetic fields. "It's incredible," Hyunsu whispered beside him. Yuna smiled. "Wait until you see it up close." The ship landed at a military facility outside the largest city. As they descended the ramp, Taemin felt the gravity, slightly heavier than Earth standard. The air smelled different too, metallic and sharp but not unpleasant. A reception party waited for them. Dozens of Mothkai in formal armor, arranged in precise formations. And at the center, one figure stood taller than the rest. Commander Velth was massive even by Mothkai standards. His armor was decorated with symbols that Taemin assumed were military honors. His face was weathered and stern. When he walked forward, every other Mothkai straightened to attention. He stopped directly in front of Taemin. For a long moment, he just stared down at the human. Taemin felt like an insect being examined. Then Commander Velth knelt. The gesture shocked every Mothkai present. A few gasped. Kravar and his warriors immediately knelt as well. The entire reception party followed. "You gave my daughter sight," Velth said in careful human language. "There are no words in either of our languages for what that means to me, to her mother, to our family." Taemin did not know what to say. I'm just glad she's okay. More than okay. She is transformed. Happy in ways I never saw before." Velth stood and the others rose with him. "Come, she waits to see you." They were taken to a facility that reminded Taemin of a research university. Clean, modern, filled with equipment he did not recognize. In a large laboratory, scientists moved between stations, all of them focused on various projects. And there, standing by a window, was Velis. She had grown in the short time since he last saw her. Or maybe she just seemed bigger here in her home environment. She still wore the visor. When she heard them enter, she turned and her face lit up with joy. "Taemin." She ran to him, all 4 arms outstretched. She hugged him tight. "You came. Father said you would, but I was worried." "Of course I came." He hugged her back, surprised at how emotional he felt. Velis pulled back and looked at him through the visor. "I have seen so many things, colors, stars, my mother's face. Your device gave me everything." A female Mothkai approached. She was elegant, wearing robes instead of armor. "I am Sith, Velis's mother, and Commander Velth's mate. Thank you does not seem sufficient for what you have done." "I'm happy I could help," Taemin said honestly. Over the next hour, he was introduced to dozens of people. Scientists, military officials, government representatives. Everyone wanted to meet the human who had solved the impossible problem. Finally, he was taken to his workspace. It was enormous. A laboratory 3 times the size of his entire shop, filled with the most advanced equipment in the Mothkai Empire. A team of scientists waited there, all eager to learn. One human stood among them. She was older, maybe 50, with gray hair and sharp eyes. She approached Tamian with a warm smile. I'm Nari, xenobiologist. I've been studying Mothkai neural systems for 15 years. She shook his hand. When I heard what you accomplished, I thought it was a hoax. Then I saw Velis. Now I just want to know how you did it. Tamian liked her immediately. I'm not sure I can explain it. I just tried something different. That's what we need. Different thinking. Nari gestured to the equipment. Everything here is yours. Whatever you need, you get. The High Council has made this project the highest priority. The work began immediately. Tamian and Hyunsu showed the Mothkai scientists the Visor design. They explained the principles, the neural mapping, the cross-modal translation. The Mothkai scientists were brilliant. They understood concepts that Tamian struggled to explain, but they were also stuck in their own way of thinking. They kept trying to make the Visor work like Mothkai electromagnetic sight. No, Tamian said for the 5th time. It's not about recreating what you already have. It's about giving them something completely new. A senior scientist whose name Tamian could not pronounce clicked in frustration. But how can they understand visual input if their brains never developed for it? The same way human babies learn to see, Hyunsu explained. The brain is plastic, it adapts. You just have to give it the right kind of input in the right way. It took 3 days of back and forth before they finally understood. Once they did, the work accelerated rapidly. During breaks, Kravar and the other warriors showed Tamian around the city. It was overwhelming. Buildings reached toward the sky in impossible spirals. Mothkai civilians moved through the streets in organized patterns that looked like chaos to human eyes, but clearly had purpose. Your people are very coordinated, Tamian observed. Vel, the youngest warrior, made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. We are hive-minded. Not literally, but culturally. We move together. Think together. It is our strength. It's also why the shadow-touched struggle so much, Thess added. When everyone moves together using electromagnetic sense, those who cannot perceive it are always out of step. Tamian began to understand the depth of the problem. This was not just about sight. It was about inclusion in society itself. One evening, Velis took him to a meeting. In a large hall, dozens of shadow-touched Mothkai had gathered. All ages, from children to elderly. When Tamian entered, they went silent. An older Mothkai stepped forward. He moved carefully, using a cane to feel his way. I am Reth. I speak for the shadow-touched community. We heard you might be able to help us. Tamian looked at all those hopeful faces. The weight of expectation pressed down on him. I'm trying. I can't promise anything, but I'm trying. That is more than anyone has done before, Reth said simply. The work continued. After 2 weeks, they had refined the Visor design significantly. They had solved manufacturing challenges. They had created a prototype that was more reliable, more comfortable, and easier to produce than Tamian's original. But not everyone was happy. Tamian started noticing some Mothkai watching him with hostile expressions. Guards were increased around the laboratory. One night he heard shouting outside his quarters. What's happening? He asked Kravar the next morning. The warrior's expression was grim. War Master Kreth has been speaking against the project. He commands significant respect. His faction believes this technology weakens our culture. Weakens it how? The Mothkai have always adapted to our environment. Kreth argues that the shadow-touched are that way for a reason. That natural selection should not be interfered with. That's ridiculous, Hyunsu said angrily. By that logic, no one should get medical treatment for anything. I agree, Kravar said. But Kreth has followers. Be careful. Despite the tension, the work progressed. 3 weeks after arriving, they were ready for a major test. 50 shadow-touched children had been selected to receive the new visors. The ceremony was held in a grand hall. Hundreds of Mothkai attended. Families of the shadow-touched, government officials, scientists, and sitting in a place of honor, War Master Kreth and his faction. One by one, the children received their visors. Tamian's hand shook as he fitted the first one. A young Mothkai, barely 6 years old by human estimation. The child gasped. Her mother sobbed. Around the hall, similar scenes repeated. 50 children saw for the first time. Parents embraced their children. Siblings stared in wonder. Even hardened warriors like Kravar seemed moved. But Kreth stood and walked out, his faction following. Tamian watched them go with a sinking feeling. This isn't over. he said quietly. Yuna, standing beside him, nodded. No, it's not. But for now he focused on the joy around him. 50 more shadow-touched could see. It was not enough. But it was something. Later that night, lying in his quarters, Taemin thought about home. About his simple shop. About the quiet life he had before. That life seemed very far away now. 5 days passed quietly. Taemin fixed a broken environmental suit for a mining crew. He repaired navigation systems for 3 different ships. He even helped a young Centauri student fix her homework tablet. Normal work, normal life. He thought about Velis sometimes. He wondered if the Visor was still working. He hoped she was happy. But mostly he just went about his business. He was not the kind of person who expected thanks or recognition. He had helped someone who needed help. That was enough. On the 6th day, everything changed. Taemin was soldering a connection on a communication relay when his shop's alert system beeped. Someone was at the entrance. He glanced at the security screen and froze. 4 figures stood outside his shop. They were massive, easily over 7 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in dark armor that seemed to absorb light. He could see the chitinous plates of Mothkai beneath the armor, and every piece of equipment they carried screamed military. Warriors. Taemin's mouth went dry. His hands started shaking. Why were Mothkai warriors at his shop? Had something happened to Velis? Had the Visor malfunctioned and hurt her? He set down his tools and walked slowly to the door. Through the transparent aluminum, he could see them more clearly now. The lead warrior had scars across his face, visible even through his helmet. All 4 carried weapons. Serious weapons. The kind meant for war, not ceremony. The door chimed. Taemin's finger hovered over the open button. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to call station security. But he opened the door. The 4 warriors entered. They had to duck to fit through the doorway. The market outside had gone completely silent. Other shop owners and customers scattered, trying to get away. Station security appeared at the far end of the corridor, but they kept their distance. The Mothkai had diplomatic immunity. The lead warrior stopped 3 feet from Taemin. Up close, he was terrifying. Battle-scarred and heavily armed. His 3 eyes, positioned around his head for wider vision, studied Taemin without blinking. You are Taemin. It was not a question. The warrior's voice was deep and rough. He spoke perfect human language without a translator. Yes. Taemin's voice came out as barely a whisper. He cleared his throat. Yes, I am. You created the device for Commander Velth's daughter, Velis. Taemin nodded. He could not seem to make his voice work again. The warrior stared at him for a long moment. Taemin was certain he was about to die. He had done something wrong. Broken some Mothkai law he did not know about. The Visor had hurt Velis somehow. Then the warrior knelt. Taemin blinked. He must have misunderstood what he was seeing, but no. The massive warrior had dropped to one knee. A moment later, the other 3 did the same. I am Kravar, first blade of Commander Velth's personal guard, the lead warrior said. These are my blade kin. Thess, Orn, and Vel. He gestured to each warrior in turn. Thess was female, lean, and dangerous-looking with twin blades on her hips. Orn was even bigger than Kravar, carrying what looked like a portable cannon. Vel was smaller, younger maybe, with equipment designed for stealth and reconnaissance. We are here on behalf of Commander Velth of the Mothkai First Fleet, Kravar continued, and the High Council of our people. Taemin finally found his voice. Is Velis okay? Did something happen to the Visor? Kravar's expression shifted. It might have been confusion. The child is more than okay. She thrives. She learns. She sees wonders she could never perceive before. Relief flooded through Taemin. Then why are you here? You do not understand what you have done, human. Kravar stood and the others rose with him. In our culture, those born without electromagnetic sight are called shadow-touched. They are cared for. They are loved. But they cannot participate in most of our society. They cannot navigate our cities. They cannot serve in our fleets. They cannot fight. He paused, and something like emotion crossed his alien features. There are thousands of shadow-touched across our worlds. For generations, our greatest scientists have tried to help them. All have failed. The High Council declared it impossible. Kravar stepped closer. Then a human engineer working alone in a repair shop did what our empire could not. You gave sight to the unseeing. Taemin shook his head. I wanted to help. It was just one child. One child who happens to be the daughter of one of our most powerful commanders, Vel spoke up. His voice was younger, sharper. When she returned home wearing your device able to see, word spread through our worlds like fire. Thess, the female warrior, added, shadow-touched families traveled for days just to see her, to see proof that sight was possible. Orn, the big one, rumbled. The High Council called an emergency session. They debated for 2 days. Kravar nodded. And they sent us. With orders. Taemin's relief started to fade. Orders. You must come with us to the Mothkai homeworld. You must teach our scientists your methods. You must help create more of these devices. Kravar's voice was firm. Thousands wait in darkness. You can bring them light. No. The word came out before Taemin could think. No, I can't. I have a life here. I have my shop. I just wanted to help one person. I'm not a hero or a savior. I'm just an engineer. Kravar's expression hardened. We hoped you would agree willingly. And if I don't? Then we have orders to be persuasive. Kravar's hand moved slightly toward his weapon. It was not quite a threat, but almost. Taemin's heart pounded. He was about to argue, about to refuse again, when a familiar voice called out from the entrance. Stop right there, warriors. Yuna pushed through the nervous crowd outside. She looked exhausted, like she had been running. Behind her came Hyunsu, equally out of breath. Yuna, Taemin said, relief in his voice. She walked straight up to Kravar without any apparent fear. I'm the cultural liaison assigned to your diplomatic mission. Forcing a human citizen to leave the station violates at least 6 treaty provisions. Kravar did not back down. This is a matter of supreme importance to our people. I understand that. I also understand that Taemin is not your property. Yuna turned to Taemin, but you should hear them out. Really hear them. Yuna, do you know how many shadow-touched exist in the Mothkai Empire? She asked. Over 40,000. Children and adults living in a world they cannot fully perceive. You change one life, Taemin. You could change 40,000. That's not fair, Taemin said quietly. No, it's not. Hyunsu stepped forward. But since when do we do things because they're fair? We do them because they're right. Taemin looked at his friend. You think I should go? I think you should decide for yourself. But I also think, Hyunsu smiled, I think you left Earth because you were tired of corporations using your work for profit. You wanted to help people directly. Well, here's your chance. Kravar watched this exchange in silence. Finally, he spoke. We do not wish to force you, but our people are desperate. The High Council has authorized me to offer you any resources you need, any payment you desire. I don't want payment, Taemin said automatically. Then what do you want? Taemin thought for a long moment. He looked at the 4 warriors, at Yuna and Hyunsu, at his small shop with its cluttered workbench and half-finished repairs. If I go, he said slowly, I go for 1 month, no longer, and Yuna comes with me as a liaison, someone to make sure this stays voluntary. Agreed, Kravar said immediately, and Hyunsu, I'll need him. He understands the neurology. Hyunsu's eyes widened. Me go to the Mothkai homeworld? You helped create the Visor. I can't do this without you. Hyunsu looked shocked, then excited. Yes, okay, yes, Kravar nodded. The High Council will accept these terms. We leave in 2 days. That gives you time to prepare. The warriors turned to leave. At the door, Kravar paused and looked back at Taemin. You have given my people hope, engineer. Whether you intended to or not. We will not forget this. After they left, Taemin sank into his work chair. His hands were still shaking. What did I just agree to? He asked nobody in particular. Yuna put a hand on his shoulder. Something important. I'm terrified. Good, Hyunsu said. That means you understand how big this is. Taemin looked around his shop. 2 days. In 2 days, he would leave this place and travel to an alien world. He would work with scientists from a warrior culture. He would try to recreate a miracle he was not sure he could repeat. He closed his eyes and thought of Velis. Of her tears when she saw for the first time. Of her joy. Maybe it would be worth it, maybe. Taemin wiped the grease from his hands and squinted at the broken datapad on his workbench. The device belonged to a Centauri trader who needed it fixed by tomorrow morning. He sighed and picked up his micro-welder. Just another day at his small repair shop on New Terra Station. The station was a busy place floating in space at the edge of human territory. Ships came and went every hour, bringing traders, diplomats, and travelers from dozens of different species. Taemin liked it here. Nobody asked too many questions about his past. Nobody cared that he used to work for the big research companies on Earth. Here he was just a guy who fixed things. The afternoon was quiet until he heard the commotion outside. Voices shouted in the market district just beyond his shop. Taman looked up from his work. The sounds grew louder. Someone was scared. He stood and walked to his door. The market was crowded as always, but people were moving away from something. No, someone. A small figure stumbled between the stalls, bumping into crates and people. Her forearms reached out, trying to feel her way forward. Tai Min recognized the species immediately, Mothkai. The insect-like aliens were known across the galaxy as fierce warriors. This one was young, maybe a child. Her chitinous plates were pale purple and she wore simple clothing. But something was wrong. She moved like she could not see where she was going. The girl knocked into a fruit stand. The owner yelled at her. She made a clicking sound, distressed and frightened. People stepped back, unsure what to do. Some looked annoyed. Others seemed worried about offending a Mothkai. Taman did not think. He just moved. He walked quickly to the girl and gently touched her shoulder. She jerked away, all forearms coming up defensively. Her head swiveled toward him, but her eyes did not focus. "Hey, it's okay," Taman said softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The girl clicked again, a rapid pattern of sounds. Taman did not speak Mothkai, but he could hear the fear in those clicks. He pulled out his translation device and clipped it to his collar. "Can you understand me now?" he asked. The device hummed, translating his words into Mothkai sounds. The girl's head tilted. She clicked back, and the translator spoke in a flat voice. "Lost, cannot find. Dark." Dark? But the market was bright with artificial lights. Taman looked closer at her face. Mothkai did not see light the way humans did. They perceived electromagnetic fields, a sense humans did not have. "If she said it was dark, you cannot see?" he asked gently. "Never see. Born dark." The translation was simple, but the meaning was clear. Before Taman could respond, someone pushed through the crowd. A human woman, breathing hard from running. She saw the Mothkai girl and relief flooded her face. "Velis," the woman called out. She rushed forward and knelt beside the girl, speaking quickly in Mothkai through her own translator. The girl Velis reached out and found the woman's arms. She held on tight. The woman looked up at Tamin. She was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes. "Thank you. I was so worried." She wandered away from the delegation quarters. "Delegation?" Tamin asked. "I'm Yuna, cultural liaison for the Mothkai diplomatic mission." She helped Velis stand. "This is Velis. Her father is Commander Velth. They're here for trade negotiations." Tamin nodded slowly. A commander's daughter. That explained the simple clothing. The Mothkai often dressed their children plainly, believing luxury made young warriors soft. "She cannot see," Tamin said. It was not a question. Yuna's expression turned sad. "No. Born without electromagnetic perception. The Mothkai call them shadow-touched. There's no cure, no treatment. She's been to the best doctors in the Empire." Velis clicked something and Yuna translated. She says she heard music and wanted to find it. She didn't mean to worry anyone. Taimin looked at the young Mothkai. Despite her blindness, she had tried to follow something beautiful. Something she could hear but never see. His chest tightened. What if there was a way? The words came out before he could stop them. Yuna stared at him. "A way? What do you mean?" "To help her see. Not like Mothkai see, but something. That's impossible. Dozens of specialists have tried. Human, Mothkai, even Centauri neurosurgeons. Her neural structure just doesn't have the pathways for sight." Taman shook his head. Maybe they were trying to give her Mothkai sight. "What if we gave her human sight instead?" Yuna frowned. "I don't understand. I work with neural interfaces. I used to design them for the big companies on Earth. If I can map the visual processing patterns from human brains and translate them into signals her brain can understand." He trailed off, thinking. It would take time, and I'd need detailed scans of Mothkai neural structure. "You're serious?" Yuna's voice was flat with disbelief. "Give me 3 days. If I can't make something work, then I'm wrong. But if there's even a chance," Velis clicked urgently. Yuna listened, then translated. "She wants to know what you're saying." Taman knelt down so he was closer to Velis's height. He spoke slowly, letting the translator do its work. "I might be able to make a device that lets you see with light like humans do. I don't know if it will work. But I want to try. There was a long pause. Then Velis reached out with one hand. Her fingers touched Tayman's face gently, tracing his features. It was how she learned what people looked like. When she pulled back, she clicked a single phrase. Yuna's voice was quiet when she translated. Please try. 3 days later, Tayman had not slept more than a few hours. His workshop was covered in diagrams, scan readouts, and discarded prototypes. His friend Hyun Soo, a neurologist who ran a clinic 2 levels down, had helped him understand the complex biology. This is insane, Hyun Soo muttered, studying a neural scan. Their brain structure is nothing like ours. But look here. Tayman pointed at a highlighted section. These electrical patterns. They're different, yes, but the frequency ranges overlap with human visual cortex activity. So you're going to trick her brain into thinking visual data is electromagnetic data? Sort of. I'm going to give her brain a completely new type of input and let it learn to interpret it. Human brains do it all the time. Cross-modal plasticity. Hyun Soo raised an eyebrow. You're betting a lot on neuroplasticity. You have a better idea? Hyun Soo smiled. No, let's finish this thing. The device was not pretty. A silver band that would wrap around the upper part of Velis's head, with 6 small nodes that would rest against her neural receptors. It would capture visual light through tiny cameras and convert it into electrical pulses her brain might understand. Might. That was the key word. When Yuna brought Velis back to the shop, Tayman's hands were shaking. What if he was wrong? What if he hurt her? But Velis reached for him, clicking confidently. Yuna smiled. She says she trusts you. Tayman carefully placed the visor on Velis's head. He adjusted the fit, made sure the nodes were positioned correctly, and activated it. Nothing happened. Velis stood still. Tayman's heart sank. Minutes passed. He was about to apologize when Velis made a sound. Not a click. A gasp. Her head turned slowly, taking in the room. One hand reached up, trembling, toward the lights above. She looked at her own hands, turning them over and over. Then she turned to Tayman. For the first time in her life, Velis saw. She moved toward him slowly, her eyes, finally working through the visor, locked on his face. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She touched his face again, but this time she was not learning by touch. She was seeing what she touched. Yuna was crying too. Even Hyun Soo wiped his eyes. Velis clicked rapidly, and Yuna laughed through her tears as she translated. She says the world is beautiful. She says you gave her the stars. Tayman tried to speak but could not find words. He just smiled and nodded. The Mothkai delegation left the station 2 days later. Velis hugged Tayman goodbye, the visor still on her head. She had not taken it off except to sleep. Through the translator, she made him promise to never forget her. He promised. As their ship departed, Tayman returned to his shop. He had other repairs to do, other customers waiting. Life would go back to normal. He had no idea how wrong he was.